Okay, so thank you for joining the podcast. I don't know what to call this yet, but I did start my Substack called How Do
Nice.
You Do? And
Nice.
it's pretty much an art project, fun project, so to speak, but I want to make it useful. So I had different themes going on. And this podcast here with you is me testing myself on being a podcast host. So I'm really thankful that you're letting me, you're agreeing to be my first guest
Yeah,
speaker. And today
sure.
we're going to talk about on mental health, especially in startup world and for entrepreneur or people who are freelancer and doing things on their own. It's there's a lot of romanticizing in this space, but in the background there's not a lot of people understanding the pressure that these people who decided to go on their own unconventional path have to like the type of pressure that they face daily. And before we get into the conversation, I'd like for us to take maybe a minute to kind of ground ourselves. We had a really busy morning, so now let's be present here. Let's do like a 1 minute kind of like box breathing that and I'll start, right? I'll
Sure.
give the instructions. So we'll breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, and then hold for 4 and repeat. Okay, so let's start. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 1, 2, 3, 4. In, hold, out, hold, in, hold, out, hold. One last one. In, hold, out, hold. All right.
All right. Thank you for that.
How do we feel?
Feeling a little bit more calm.
Yeah, same. I been running around. So this I learned this from my business coach, and well, I know about this box breathing exercise before, but I didn't realize that using this before starting a meeting can help you kind of ground. At least I feel more grounded and more present, and
Mhm.
can be really helpful to, especially in sessions where there's a lot of mental work
Mm.
involved.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So Gino,
Yes.
I know that you have planned for a TEDx, whether now or in the future. So please, this is your platform too. Tell us and the audience what you are about.
Yeah. Well, I guess starting perhaps at that TEDx talk. So TEDx is coming to New Haven. They have already picked their applicants, and I'm not one of them, but doesn't prevent me
Yet,
from,
yet.
exactly. It doesn't prevent me
Yes.
from applying in the future to other ones. There's a lot of TEDx's going on all the time. But basically, my sort of hypothesis or TEDx proposed speech was that I'm trying to think of the specific title I had. It was the one myth that is hiding your purpose, and basically the idea of the talk was that finding your purpose, your life's purpose, calling, whatever you want to call it, is sort of being hidden behind this belief that we're not worthy enough, which is then sort of a larger conversation on mental health, how we see each other, see ourselves, personal growth limitations, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm kind of all about trying to find more purpose and meaning in the work that I do. I went to school to be a mechanical engineer, and I was in the military defense contracting world for 6 to 7 years, and it never made sense to me. I never like connected with it. I was always confused as to like what I was doing, always kind of like trying to reach for something more, and then eventually during the pandemic, like right in the middle of it, I quit and left to pursue my side business full time. And that was in the podcasting world. I was working on other people's podcasts, doing like audio engineering. But sort of along the way, found how important it is to be cognizant of your mental health and like um, yeah, to just think about like where you are versus just like um, I don't know. I feel like everything's so fast, especially in the corporate world, and then even more so when you're building your own business. There's like so many things thrown at you that you don't expect, and you can become. I became swallowed by it, like, uh, before I knew it. So I had to make sure that I like took care of my mental health, and yeah, ever since leaving corporate, and I've had different iterations of businesses, done different side things, have started new businesses, and have been able to keep like mental health a top priority, which I'm, I guess, proud of. And then I also have a podcast called Working Towards Our Purpose, which again is in alignment with like my ever striving to like find purpose.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm hearing all the things that you're doing now after leaving the corporate, and I'm like, oh, like I want to do the same. Like I have been doing different things, but like I want to have a more consistent blog and a consistent podcast too. So whenever I do sign into Substack and I see you posting, it gives me a lot of encouragement to like,
Mm,
I can do this too.
totally.
And and what you mentioned about quitting your job and not feeling like you were connected to what you were doing. Interesting enough, this morning I connected with someone. This is I'm part of a professional network for facilitators who do facilitation professionally, whether it's in product development or in business strategies, coaching, etc. And one of them tag me in their post to the community saying that because just rewind a little bit, I had made a post a couple of weeks back about like questioning like what is someday idea that you've been brewing for the past how many days, months, years. What is it now, and like what does it take for you to jumpstart that? Let's all be. It was an invitation to be each other accountability buddies, so to speak. And so anyway, this morning he tagged me onto it, and that he actually finally got laid off. It's been something that was in like the known for a couple of weeks. So you can imagine the type of pressure that someone might have to think about, like, am I on the list, right?
Hmm.
Um, but he actually turned this into a win. And so this is where the mental health and the mental piece is really important. I believe is that like it's layoff is never fun. But if there is an opportunity to reframe it in a different way, it would be really helpful. And thankfully he did. He reframed it as like he wasn't happy with the job anyway. So and depending on who you are, but like I was like, is it appropriate to congratulate someone on their layoff? Because technically it's better than quitting in a way, because like you sometimes you get severance pay, even though usually those are like peanuts. But at least you get something. So I mentioned in the post that I'm gonna talk about that experience during the podcast today as well. Because the full disclosure, I was also laid off. And for me, it was a sign that is essentially the universe kicked me in the butt and say, go do what you wanted to do. And I've always
Hmm.
wanted to start my own business. So I was like, okay, this is a sign.
Hmm.
Um,
Yes. Well,
and
hey, congratulations to you then.
yeah, yeah, thank you. It was a sign, and yeah. But all that sounds really like fun. But the reality of that is there's still some self-validation affected by the layoff, at least for me.
Hmm.
And what something that I learned is that no matter especially if you're embarking on something that's so different than the, traditional path, it's really important to have a mental health check with yourself and also surround yourself with people who are supportive of it because the world is full of no's and it's really hard to find a yes, and the yes is what helps with your mental health. Yeah, curious to hear what's your journey with mental health has been, um, especially like after quitting. Do you ever any have self-doubt moment, and how do you overcome that?
For sure. I mean, that's like a very frequent occurrence for me, to feel self-doubt, to feel not worthy, to feel suppressed. Yeah, I think I liked what you said about when you're not sort of on a linear path that is sort of laid out for you, and there's a bunch of people kind of doing the same thing around you that gives you reassurance that you're kind of headed in the right direction. It can be hard to know that like what you're choosing is quote unquote correct. I think often about like choices, and it becomes easy to like doubt yourself, especially when you're starting something new or creating something, or starting a podcast and like there's nobody there to listen, and then you make a bunch and there's like a little bit of people listening, and like you can use that as the sort of validation that you're good at doing it or good enough at doing it. But it's, I don't know, I try to disconnect the um I guess the outcome from like why I'm doing it, and I try to find a better reason as to why I'm doing something other than the outcome. um because I think that's a lot of times when I can struggle with it. But to get back to your question about like mental health, I think I'm, since leaving mechanical engineering, I'm way more aware of what's going on with me, like in my head. And I think that that has been important for me, because when I do now feel self-doubt coming up, I can try to like break it down a little bit and be like, okay, where is this coming from? Maybe it's coming from because I just looked at my analytics and they weren't as good as I wanted to be. And then I could be like, okay, well, that's not really a fair indication that what you're doing is good or not good. So therefore I can kind of like talk myself out of it almost, or like um, reframe it in a way that doesn't make it like personal towards me and like how I am as a character. Like it's not, that doesn't mean I'm not a worthy person. It just means that I'm starting something new and it's going to take time to build, and you don't know how long it's going to take because it's new, and you're creating it. So I think you have to have a little bit more like forgiveness with yourself when you're doing hard things, new things, things out of the ordinary. Like um, there's going to be like lots of ups and also lots of downs, and struggling is like part of it because you're learning. So like accepting that the struggling is part of the process. I think back to when I was in corporate, it was like every day was the same. Like I worked one corporate job, I went in every day. It was exactly the same. There was like hardly any ups and downs. It was very even. And I constantly have to remind myself, like, I did not like living like that. So when I do get down, it's because nowadays, like after leaving, when I do have lows, I remind myself that like it's part of the process, and it also lets you experience the highs. And I think I always say that I'd rather take the highs and the lows versus just like an even keeled life that is never going anywhere.
Yeah, that's so real. Like, I was listening to you and I also got a little distracted because I just noticed you're wearing your t-shirt that says
I am,
working
yes.
towards our purpose.
It's my
I love
podcast
that.
t-shirt. Got some merch on my website.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah.
Mhm,
Um, Yeah, that's not to say that that consistent, like go to a corporate job and do your job and come back is anything bad. I think the point here is to find like what figuring out what gives you fulfillment in life. And
mhm,
everyone's fulfillment's different. But I do see a trend of people starting their own business. So yeah, I think that you're exactly right. Like learning something new. Sometimes, people have beginner's luck where they start something and it's instantly a hit. Uh, and then there are other people who start something and they struggle. And I think like from my point of view, it's a matter of like, okay, just do it, right? And
mhm,
then you can refine something um, using your example, for example, like with the blog or it's one thing to get external validation from the likes and comments, and it's another to take that as a feedback to, okay, like, do I want to do anything about those external validation? No? Okay, then move on. If you do, then like what maybe like you could test out different ideas, pivot and whatever, if that's your goal. I think like yeah, it's
mhm.
yeah. I
Yeah.
personally started my own blog um as a training for myself to put myself out there because like I have a lot of thoughts and idea in my head and no one will know about how shitty or how great they are,
Mhm,
especially if I want to work more with other people. They won't know who I am if I don't put these thoughts out there, and so that's I even specify in my first article saying that like this is gonna be messy, so expect messiness and chaos, but also there
mhm,
will be some organized event, posts too because that's I'm a structure person. I'm also a mechanical engineer. So I think like that kind of ingrained in me where I I'm more leaning towards structured things, but at the same time, before I get to the more structured part, there will be some chaos that get
mhm,
there. And yeah, it's 100% of like being self-aware and also forgiving yourself if like things are hard, because rarely do anyone succeed on the first try.
mhm. Yeah, that reminds me, I once a successful entrepreneur once told me that there's a certain thing that happens at like the 3 year mark of doing something where it will either like show you that it's a possibility of like being able to do it long term and successful and that sort of thing, or you kind of like figure out, I don't know, he said something about like at the 3 year market like things change if you're doing something consistently and it's working at the 3 year mark, like you'll know. And I think that was significant for two reasons. One, just to show like how long it takes to actually like gain traction with something is 3 years, which is, people want instant social media success overnight. um, but also to show like that, um, that's a good like sort of checking in point of like, do I still want to keep doing this way? Is it sustainable? I think sustainability for me is a really big part of entrepreneurship because my first business was working in podcasting, and at pretty much around the 3 year mark, I sort of got really burnt out doing it. And then I was asking all these questions like, why am I doing this to begin with? And then I realized that it was kind of, I went into podcasting because it was another skill that I had other than my mechanical engineering. So sort of got into it from process of elimination, just being like, oh, I have this other skill of audio engineering. Let me get into podcasting. And it was sort of accidental, sort of um, a frantic decision that I made to try to get out of a corporate industry. So it makes sense that I, did the best with what I had at the time, but pretty much at like the 3-ish year mark, I was like, you know what, I don't think I want to pursue this anymore. Like this isn't really giving me what I want. And yeah, kind of, I mean, that's another thing, as far as like, the feeling of being laid off, the feeling of like having a business and you're like, you know what, I think this is done. That's another like sort of hit to your self-doubt. But I think I was able to reframe it and be like, no, I'm choosing to not do this because I want to do other things. And yeah, just being like really, uh, aware of like what it is that I want to do. Because yeah, there's only so much time, and I think we really have to chase the things that we want and bring the ideas that we have to fruition. So yeah, I for me, like designing a job that was just burning me out was like kind of not the point of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Yeah, you're your own boss. So like why do you oppress yourself?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Um on the note of like mindset when you starting out, uh I came across something pretty interesting too. Like it's great if you have like one specific things that you want to work on right away. But otherwise, it might be a good idea to try different things before deciding on one thing. And let me just like interject a little bit of like my experience as a product developer into this context a little bit. That like, let's say that you have a really great idea and you immediately want to go to patent it and then, skipping a whole lot of steps that I won't get into. But more often than not, when people have an idea and they immediately um, execute on it without doing homework and sort of figuring out if like what are the different approaches to execute this idea and how to like which one of those approaches are the best approach. Um, they often have to redo it, like go back to the drawing board and redo the whole thing. So as you can imagine, just like one circle, the first time they do it, they have to return. The second time they do it again, maybe they get a little further and then they fail and then they go back to point zero. So like the circle becomes bigger and bigger each time, and you end up like wasting more time. Versus if you start out with like, oh, let's explore all different ideas, and you have like many circles, and then you just choose the best one to spend time on, then it's more likely that you will succeed and spend less money and time. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, as I mentioned, I'm a structure person, so this is like the visual that I see in my head, and maybe like I'll put that visual, overlay that on here when I
Yeah.
edit the video.
Yeah, no, I like that. I do think, um, that applies to like many different things too. I feel like, even just in like finding what you like what you're passionate about, or like where you want to go with something. I think a lot, for me, my own personal experience, like I went to high school, I chose a major for college, I went to college, I went into the industry after college for 6 years. So I spent so much time doing this one thing that I picked, and I didn't really think too hard about it. It was mostly just like people influencing me to do this. You're good at math, go to engineering. People around me doing engineering. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll do engineering. So I spent, how many years trying to like accomplish this goal and then go work in that goal. And it was something that I didn't really spend a whole lot of time thinking about. So
Mm.
it makes sense that it wasn't the right choice for me because I didn't really spend a whole lot of time getting to know myself, trying different things. I like that's my advice now to anybody who like doesn't know what they want to do. It's just like go try things, and then you'll have experience. You'll be like, I don't like this, or I do like this. I think it's weird that we have to pick a major without having any idea of what the job entails. Like I had no idea what an engineer did when I decided to be an engineer. I just
That's
was good
so
at
real.
math.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you. In fact, I was thinking like, man, I wish I met the current Gino 20 years ago.
Me too.
What? Right? I feel like I was on a similar path, right? Uh, do really well in school, get into a really good school, really good college, like study the heck out of it and pick a major that like for Asians, like it's either doctor, uh, oh geez, like mostly
Lawyer.
doctors. I was actually the only engineer in my family, and the
Oh,
reason
wow.
I chose engineer was because I love math, science, physics, chemistry, and things like that. And in my head, it's like, well, mathematicians isn't gonna make me any money, so engineer it is.
Hmm.
So it
Right.
was, and to be clear though, I love being an engineer. I worked at a really great corporation called Lockheed Martin. Maybe you guys have heard of it, but
Certainly.
yeah, and I really love that, but um, it was kind of like I was on autopilot. I was following someone else's path that was written for me. I didn't have the self-awareness to truly understand what it is that I want to do. And you're absolutely right. Asking an 18-year-old who had no idea what the different occupations are, like how the world works,
Hmm.
is kind of like crazy. And I think that the system is there supposedly to help, but sometimes the system is so rigid that it doesn't help. And I wish that the education system is it needs a huge update, like for many reasons, and this is one of them.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so if we talk about like so we talk a lot about like self-awareness, which is really important. I'm curious what other aspect of mental health that can help us survive in
Hmm.
this day and age, especially in in the startup world. And also, please feel free to like share with us what you might talk about during your TEDx as well.
Hmm. Well, I think the first thing that came to mind, which would have been like a piece of the conversation or of the TEDx talk, is being like kind to yourself. I think that it's like a topic that keeps coming back to me these past few weeks, and um, yeah, just realizing how hard I am on myself and unaware of how hard I am on myself sometimes. It's almost like automatic. Like if I'm not being productive, I just like make myself miserable unintentionally. And it's just sort of an ingrained habit that I've learned from, you know, who knows where. I'm sure some of it was parental. I'm sure some of it was from school. Um, but that's not really important where I got it from. I think it's more important to be aware of it and then I can change it. So that's one that I'm working on right now. And I think that like uh, um, it's it's not sort of looked at as a strength to like be nice to yourself and to be like self-loving. I think especially in like startup world and entrepreneur world, there's like a lot of hustle talk. There's a lot of like you'll sleep when you're dead, like just work hard, 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 and like I do not resonate with any of that. I think, and what's been helpful for me is to be gentle with myself and kind with myself because if I have these ideas that I want to bring to fruition, if I constantly like berate myself for not being good enough or this idea sucks or nobody's going to want to listen to you, then the idea will never come out. And also, when you're mean to yourself and you're, you know, sort of not aware of the nasty thoughts that are in your head against yourself, it makes it really hard to change. And I think I'm always evolving and growing. And when you're trying to stop a bad habit or an ingrained habit, being hard on yourself makes it way harder to change that. And when you're kind with yourself and you can have sort of acceptance for struggling and for failing again and again, then you can help to make a change that actually like is helpful, you know, a change that you can actually make the change happen by being kind to yourself and supportive of yourself. Because like, um, you know, especially you said like surround yourself with like-minded supportive people before, like you also have to be supportive for yourself. And that was something I never learned when I was a kid. I never really like supported myself very much. I was never like my own cheerleader or anything like that. And I'm learning how that is such an important thing now. Like the way that you talk to yourself in your head is basically a representation of who you're going to be. And if you can be kind with yourself in your head, then you can like let whatever's in your head come out. I don't know if that
Yeah.
makes total sense, but yeah, it's just it's like a profound thing that if you treat your thoughts and yourself with like this pristine grace, then you can like create something that you know you can not you can literally make anything happen because you can allow yourself to think it and to bring it into fruition. So I don't know if I articulated that very well, but it's been something that this has been on my mind a lot. And yeah, I've read a couple books that the same theme keeps coming through, and I read a very interesting um, ancient text that talks about uh, Dharma, which is like a concept, I guess, of purpose or like the reason that you're here. And there's four principles of Dharma, or to live in like a way of Dharma. Um, and one of them is nonviolence. And in the book that I read, it talked about how negative self-talk is an act of violence on yourself. And when
Mm-hmm.
I read that, I was like, whoa, that's totally true. And I never thought of it that way. And I just like habitually do it. But now I'm like within the past couple of weeks, I've really tried to be aware of when I'm doing it and be like, hey, you can't do this. Like, stop what you're doing. You can't be talking to yourself like this. You have to change it. And I'm determined to change that sort of automatic mentality that I have. So that's like really big for me right now.
That's crazy. I love that book. I wrote it down. I'm gonna check it out. And I want to get into more books recommendation later on. But there was a few points that like when you said it, it was like hitting home for me because like being kind to yourself. It's such a childhood development thing. And I used to be I used to work in children's toy and learning about the importance in childhood develop like the phase of childhood development and uh, I feel like it's now parents nowadays are more aware of the mental health and mental strength um, um, training, so to speak, for education for their kids. But back in the day, it's I don't think it's a thing
Mm.
unless you are an educationer or and don't quote me on this, but I love reading about psychology. I think like it all started during the pandemic. Um, but on a topic of like being kind to yourself, like if you are raised in a household of like um always like perform well and your emotion is not being talked about, like you don't talk about emotions ever, it's really hard to even recognize that you're being unkind to yourself. And I came across this idea of like when parents kind of like criticize their children, the children don't hate the parents, they hate themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when I came across that idea, I was like, holy cow. And without the self-awareness, and because like you were too young to even have self-awareness, right? You kind of like carry that into adulthood. And when you try something new, like starting on your own business, there's so much self-doubt. Like it's one thing to have the external um non-validating world, like say like, oh, you don't know what you're doing, like, and then there's the internal voice that's telling yourself that like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. And then like it's like instead of taking breaks like you would in 9 to 5, like after 5 o'clock you take a break, like you don't do that and you just keep going because you don't feel that you're productive enough or for whatever reasons, right? And then you get burned out. And burnout in startup worlds is like even worse than burnout in the corporate world because like you're the one holding a knife against yourself. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's invisible and it's really hard to see that. So I love that what you said about from that book about like it's a crime that you're committing against yourself if
Mm-hmm.
you're not your own cheerleaders. Um, yeah, so for me at least, where this whole self-criticism came from was from my childhood. And for me, I find it helpful to recognize that uh, I'm no longer a child. Like I have an inner child that um, believe this way. I am no longer a child and I can change my viewpoint. And so a little segue here. I'm a firm believer of like talking about the concept, but then what are the tools that we can actually use? And so this is something that uh, I've learned. Sometimes I do this and sometimes I don't. But I would like write down what it is that I believe about myself. What are the limiting beliefs, and
Mm-hmm.
then come back to it later as if, I'm reading this that's a friend wrote to me, and then respond to it. Like I'm a really good friend. My really good friend had this belief about herself. Like what will I say to her? Um, and I find that meta. It's a little meta, right? And but it's helpful. Like if a friend comes to you struggling and saying like, man, I feel like I spend so much hours doing this, but like I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, would you tell him or her? I was like, yeah, like what the heck are you doing? Like
Yeah.
you wouldn't talk down to your best friend or your good friends like that. So why do you
Mm-hmm.
do that to yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, that's so important. And I think that journaling is a great way um, to almost like see yourself in the third person and be like, oh, I'm like, I have this belief about myself that's not really true. And just, yeah, so much awareness can come from that. And that's great writing prompts to like try to change your beliefs. Because that's part of growth and part of, I think, wanting to do more things, wanting to have a business, wanting to like do anything you need to grow in order to like do something new. I mean, anytime you do something new, you have to like grow from your old self to your new self because you didn't know how to do it before. And it's so easy to just be mad at yourself for not knowing how to do it. Like I often find myself being like, oh man, I'm not quote unquote there yet. Like, what am I
Yeah.
doing? And then I look back and I'm like, oh, I've only been doing this for like 2 months. Okay, well maybe you should have some patience.
Right.
So part of it is just that kindness and that gentleness of how you treat yourself. I think that allows you to keep going.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. And what you said actually reminds me of a book that one of my favorite books that I recommend anyone who are interested in like knowing about themselves and better themselves. It's like the foundation of all human psychology, in my opinion. And it's called The Six Pillars of Self-Esteem by
Mm,
Nathaniel Branden. Um, and I think you really like to this too, Gino, because like the six pillars of self-esteem. Oh, geez, I have a pile of book on the floor. See if I can grab it real quick. Yay, I found it.
Nice.
I have like lots of notes here.
Hmm.
Um, so let's see if I can get to the list. Like I should remember this, but for because this is going on record, maybe on the index. Ah, so here, so first off, this book was written back in, geez, what years was this published? 1994, but it's still so relevant because
Mm,
like when anyone mentioned the word self-esteem nowadays is it feels like a commoditized term, and a lot of people don't fully understand what self-esteem actually is. And this book like really break it down, but more importantly, it has prompts in here to help with your self-esteem. Um, so I'll just read off the six pillars of self-esteem. The practice of living consciously, the practice of self-acceptance, the practice of self-responsibility, the practice of self-assertiveness, the practice of living purposely, and finally, the practice of personal integrity.
mm,
And so I think like we kind of like talked about self-awareness, right? Like living consciously. So that's self-awareness. And then
mm,
being kind to ourselves. And I think like it start with self-acceptance. Like you need to accept that you are human with flaws and
mm,
accept yourself so that you can be kind to yourself. And only when you accept yourself and be kind to yourself can you advance yourself, so to speak. I freaking love this book. I refer to it like all the time.
mm,
And it has like really good exercise in there to help. And I have seen results from it. Um,
mm.
so
Yeah, I'll definitely add that to my never-ending list of books to read.
that's true.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, but I mean, books have been such a great source of knowledge and experience for me too. I think I always hated reading, and then when I was still in my corporate career and I was like desperate to leave, and I hated my job so much because I didn't like there wasn't that much required of me, so I could do all of my work in basically like a day and then have 4 days that I just sat there and I was just like bored. Um, so I downloaded the Kindle app on my phone and I just started reading books, and it literally life changing because I found a love for reading through that, and I just read some books with some just huge ideas that really challenged the way that I believed about myself. Just so many different principles about business, about like uh, personalities, like yeah, just so many different things. And I definitely am a very different person because I picked up the habit of reading. And yeah, I think the book I actually had my book that I was referencing right next to me too. It's the Book of Dharma by Simon Haas, and I have all my stickies in it too. But this breaks down the ancient text that I was referring to as the Bhagavad Gita, and yeah, just without this, I wouldn't have been able to really like comprehend that text. But this made it like so digestible, and it's a really really great book. So yeah, I love reading.
I love that. It's I also not I didn't start out as a reader either, but
Mm,
like I'm a huge nonfiction reader. I didn't realize that I'm even a reader until my friend pointed out recently, like, Young, you read a lot. I was like, oh, I guess I do. I do now. But like in school, my mom would like try to make me read. But first of all, if you make your children read, make sure you read too, because like you gotta lead by
mm,
example. I've never seen my parents read, but that
mhm,
wasn't the conscious, rationale when I plus school. But I never find reading interesting until adulthood and books like these and
Hmm.
that book too, I'm gonna add to my list. Maybe we should like do I actually started a book club at Make Haven.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
for those who were listening and wondering, Make Haven is a nonprofit maker space that provide resources for hobbyists, entrepreneurs, businesses, and their mission is to um, help whatever that you want to make like become reality without spending tons of fund in order to buy equipment. So they are a really great organization that I've been volunteering for what, like 4 or 5 years now. And I started a book club last year on reading books about entrepreneurship. So I'm thinking of restarting that book club again, and it helps with the discussion because sometimes like you read a book and everyone might read the same book, but everyone has their own interpretation and
Yeah.
insights. So it's really interesting to hear others people's insight too.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely let me know if you start that up again because I would be interested. I've actually started just doing like book reviews on my Substack just so it forces me to go back through like my sticky notes and to
Mhm.
like take the major concepts from it so that I'm not just like blowing through it and being like, oh, that sounds good. That sounds good.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's
totally.
I would love to be able to like talk to other similar like-minded people about a concept of a book and learn their perspective because yeah, we all have different perspectives.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So, before we wrap up, I want to talk about some tools that can help us. So, besides readings, books, and discussing that with other people, whether via the form of a blog or podcast or book clubs, um, let's do a tool swap on like what do we do when we feel, doubt or low. I'll let you start. Do you know if you have any?
Yeah, sure.
Putting you on the spot.
I have a lot and I always forget all of them when I'm down. But simple, I like simple. So literally going for a walk is huge. Sometimes when you're not feeling well or you're feeling depressed, it can be hard to like leave and to like get out of the environment that you're in. But a lot of
Mhm.
times, just physically moving your body will help you get unstuck. It's like the principle of physics of body at rest stays at rest. So by
Mm.
walking, you're moving your body. You're also seeing a bunch of new things that weren't where you previously were. You're walking by trees and benches and people, and eye contact with one person can like give you a sense of joy or somebody smiling at you. Like it can completely change your day. There's just so many like possibilities if you go take a walk outside. So that's like the most reliable one that like I always because it's also super easy. So I try to do that frequently. So that'd be my first one.
I'll add to that because I was going to say my tool is meditation. And uh, if anyone is on Audible, there's this book. I momentarily forgot what the book is called, but it's essentially around different ways to meditate, and one of them is by walking. Uh,
Mm.
exactly what you said, like to kind of like get it out of your head and just like in your body and just walk. And the author actually gave a very specific instruction for people to follow if they choose to, is that when you walk, like instead of um, it's a little bit than your approach. And like either way work, right? For anyone who listen and try different things, see what works for you. But the idea with walking meditation is focus on your body, like how you shift your weight, which foot you're stepping with, are you breathing, how your arms are swinging, um, how do you, what if you're bare feet, like what do you feel when each of your foot touch the ground and things like that. And the idea is that it draws you back to being in the moment. I mean, like the whole idea of like meditation is to gain control of your own mind, because most of the time, like we have like million thoughts per second, right? And it's really easy to like have those thoughts pull us to different direction and react to those moments. But rather, if meditation, in my opinion, helps calm those thoughts, not necessarily like refuse them. They will come either way, but like being more control of like when they're coming, accept them, let them go, and kind of like quiet the mind. And by focusing on either your breathing, if you're practicing seated meditation, or by walking, those things tends to help.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. I think meditation's um, one of those things. I think that sometimes I've heard people say like, "Oh, I can't meditate. Like, I'm I have too many thoughts." And it's like, well, yeah, that's the point. So it's been difficult for me to get into meditation, but I finally have a practice where I'll just do it like again, super short, just like 8 minutes. And you literally, I'm literally just sitting there like breathing and like watching my thoughts, and it
Mm.
definitely helps me way more calm wise. But another thing that I find really helpful, I read the book The Artist's Way, which is a great book for people who are creative or people who want to be more creative or don't think that they're creative. Um, and there's a lot of exercises and examples in there. The one that I took away was something she calls morning pages. And basically, she challenges you to, when you wake up, just write 3 pages of whatever's on your mind. Doesn't matter what it is, just literally anything. You're just like dumping your brain.
Mm.
And at first I was like, this is annoying. I don't want to do this. Like 3 pages is a lot handwritten. So I don't totally do three. I
Three
usually do like
pages? Oh,
one.
wow.
Yeah,
Well,
I
you're
usually do
talking
like
about
one.
like this size page, or
Like a note.
like,
Yeah, like a well, I guess she didn't really specify, so I don't know. I don't think that's the important part. I think the important part is getting rid of your thoughts, because like I notice sometimes if I feel myself starting to like slip on the edge of like self doubt or like falling into something negative cycles, I will get a notebook and I'll just like write everything down. And what ends up happening is I start writing down what I'm worrying about. So I'll write down like I'm worried about money, or I'm worried that this idea won't work, or I'm worried I'll nobody will ever listen to my podcast. And basically, when you write all that stuff down, it gets out of your head, and then your head is so much more clear. And it's kind of like journaling, I guess, but I think it's also a lot more friendly for people who don't like journaling, because that's seems like a much more intense experience to like journal about yourself. But I guess it really is the same as journaling, but it's just more approachable, it seems. So just like, yeah, and anytime you're like starting to spiral or something, you just grab a notebook and just start writing until you like feel better. And it's super simple. Again, you don't have to like do anything complex. It's just literally getting rid of your thoughts.
yeah, I love that. And what you said reminds me of this journaling method that I learned from a silent retreat. It's essentially, and there's some science behind this too, because like what's going on in your head, when you write it down, it's like move into the cortex or something
Mm.
like that, and it kind of like release it. I'm not a psychologist, so I don't explain this really well, but in
Yeah,
one of
no, that
my
makes
therapy
sense.
stions, yeah, it's
Yeah,
like it relieves it so that it's not
hmm
like circle around up here
right,
in the brain cloud, and just like
right.
oh and this book also like mentions something along that line too. And if you can't write, like everyone kind of like communicate differently, right? If you're on a pinch, you can also record yourself. And that's
Mm,
what I actually started doing, because like I noticed that I wake up feeling anxious.
hmm
And this is not so much a tool, but probably a practice. that I started doing this week actually, that I turn off all the notifications on my phone. Because like
Mm-hmm.
first thing in the morning, most people grab their phone and what do they see? Tons of notifications, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're an entrepreneur or in a startup, you see like, holy cow, this is like there's this thing that I need to do. And then before you know it, you're responding to email in bed, you're doing work in bed, and then you look at the clock and it's like, oh, it's like almost noon.
Mm-hmm.
And so you
Yeah.
didn't have any self-care, you wake up with chaos basically. And that's tend not to be a good way to start a day. I love the idea of like just dumping all these thought down on paper so that you start with a fresh page, essentially in your head. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I
Oh,
definitely.
sorry. Let me also expand a little bit on this like journaling methodology. And I thought this was really cool because there's, especially if you haven't done this before, there's something about, it's called the writer's block. Like people might look at the page and then like, yes, they have tons of thoughts, but then it's really hard to translate those thoughts on paper. And so this methodology, with journaling, you write whatever without lifting your pen. The key is that just keep writing and without lifting your pen, and that creates kind of like a stream of consciousness that just like write, and then it becomes easier for these thoughts to get unblocked, and eventually those worries will be on paper. And so I have a journal full of that. Just
Mm-hmm.
like it's not for anyone to see, so if it's not legible, that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely I like that. Yeah, I was just gonna also second like the notifications thing. I don't really have any notifications on my phone, and I try to not look at it when I get up. Because I think that your morning time is the most important part of the day because it sets the tone for the day. So, especially if I'm on a morning when I'm recording a podcast, my morning is like very protected, and I like have a whole routine that I do. And yeah, like my podcast is literally like 20 minutes long, but I finish recording it at probably like 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I get up at 5 a.m. So my morning, like I really spend a lot of time to make my head in the right space before I can record. So that to say, like I think your morning time is very sacred, and of course we're all busy and stuff, but if you can find just a little bit of time for yourself, I think, whether it's reading or meditating or yoga or journaling or just sitting in silence, having a cup of coffee by yourself with no phone, like I think that can be really helpful to help set the tone for the day. Because then you're also, when you have time that you're not constantly distracted, you're starting to think in your head, oh, how do I want my day to go today? Like, what do I have to get done? What's the most important? Like, it helps you sort of organize all of your thoughts instead of just being like constantly bombarded. And yeah, notifications are like the worst.
Yeah.
I don't have email opened ever. I only check it like in the afternoons. Um, I don't have email notifications on my phone. I don't have social media notifications on my phone. I only have like text and calls. That's like kind of the only thing I see. And for me, that's really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hopping on that bandwagon now. And so far I really like it. Like I feel more in control of like my day to day than reacting to the notifications.
Mm-hmm.
One last tool. There are like so many, but I want to share this one, and I actually thought that you were gonna share this first because I saw it on your Substack, and I was like, I use the
Okay.
same tool. Do you know?
I
Do you have
don't.
a guess?
I don't think so.
Oh, it's called Insight Timer.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's a great app. It's free.
Mm-hmm.
It has like a large libraries of guided meditation as well as like just like meditation music,
Mm-hmm.
guided, non-guided. I use it to help me sleep as well. There's these like
Mm,
sound that helps with sleeping. Because if you have anxiety, chances are your sleeps are crap too.
mm,
And sleep is so important in order for you to
mhm,
feel recharged and help regulate your stress hormones and things like that. So Insight Timer also have these like daily quote, and
mm.
sometimes like they really resonate, and that's what I saw on your Substack is a
Yeah.
quote from Insight Timer.
Yeah, I love that. It gives you like a quote to start like whenever you're gonna meditate. Like usually something that's like really nice. So it's like yeah, such a great little feature. And the app's free. Like for the
Yeah.
most part, I don't like buy any of the. I'm sure there's like add-on stuff, but yeah, I use that to meditate. You set a timer. It plays music for you. It rings a bell when it's done. Yeah, that's a great tool.
Yeah. And I think like one of the new features they have is set your daily intention uh,
Mm,
on it as well. So I have kind of like a widget. I don't always do it, but sometimes like when I wake up, I'm like, I really want to do this today. And so I would set that as my intention, whether
mm.
on the app or I just like write it down on a notebook. But yeah, I love that app and I'm really happy to see you actually the only person that I've met in real life who use Insight Timer. Usually it's me
Hmm.
recommending it to other people. So I was like super stoked when I saw that on your Substack.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's cool because it also lets you like reshare the quotes on Substack, and I'm like, that's perfect.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah,
Yeah. Okay, we can stop. So let's to close out. Follow Gino on Substack if you want to, get more in touch with like yourself and wanting to find out how to work toward your to your own purpose. And if you're on that journey, Gino is your guy.
yes.
And thank you,
Well, thank you.
Gino, for yes, thank you for
Yeah,
being on my podcast. Any last words on this?
yeah. Well, thank you for having me. It was a nice conversation, and I'm honored to be the first one. Any last words? I would say, and to go with today's theme, like be good to yourself, be kind to yourself today, if you're listening to this. So that's my last words.
Yay! Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, I'll stop